Hello, hello. I am Nicole Dravillis Fravel, and this is Wildwood Teaching. And it is time for another book roundup. I'm going to look this week at books centered around a water theme. Now, last week, I talked a bit about how to use water as a loose part to practice science, to practice math, literacy, art, fine motor. So this book roundup is a little bit different in that I am not going to connect each book to an activity. If you are looking for extension ideas for the books, go back to last week's video and take a look at it. Okay, so the first book is well loved, so well loved in my classroom that it's one of those books where we've taken the cover off to make it easier for the children to read the book. But it is Water Dance by Thomas Locker. And what I love about this book is the artwork, first of all, that it treats the children, right, like people who can handle actual art, landscape paintings. And the book goes through a number of different landscapes in which you would find water in its natural forms. And almost like a guessing game, has poetic text. In the shadow of the mountain, I am still and deep. I fill and overflow. I am the lake. And then at the end asks, what am I? What is this substance that can transform into so many different landforms? So another option that's actually very similar is Water Rises, or Water Rules, Water Rises by Pat Mora. And it is very similar in that it covers water coursing through natural landscapes and creating those canals, those canyons, those oceans. And the text is again poetic, almost like a haiku. This one has the added advantage in that it is in both Spanish and English. So it is a bilingual selection. All right, so sticking with that same idea of water in different forms is yet another title. Water is Water by Linda Paul. And this one is good for introducing the water cycle because the water kind of transforms into its next iteration on the next page. So here we have water is water until it heats up. Swirl, swirl, watch it curl by. Steam is steam, right? So once you heated it up, it became steam, and it follows that steam as it rises into fog, as it rises into the cloud, and so on. So, Hey Water by Antoinette Portis is one of my preschool children's favorite books because they can read it. So what I like to do when I read this book is, again, it is talking about different forms of water. But this time, it's about how people use water. So we have water in the faucet, water in our bathtub, water that we drink, water that we might play in a sprinkler. And what the children like to do is I say, hey, water, I know you. You're all around. And then this large text is basically just a label. And so we like to look at that first letter and see if they can read what the items are. And often, after I do this as a group, children will pick it up on their own and read it to their friend. They know what that word is. Okay. Another option is All the Water in the World by George Ella Lyon and Catherine Tillotson. Um, and again, this is another example that covers the water cycle in poetic fashion, right? But it also has a conservation message, and that it's kind of going backwards, is that you get the water from a hose, but let's keep going backwards and backwards until we see where that water came from. And then the message is all the water in the world is all the water in the world. So take care of it. Okay. A Cool Drink of Water is a National Geographic book by Barbara Curley, and it takes photographs from National Geographic photographers from all around the world, and pairs it with a really simple text about people drinking water. So it has a nice social studies tie-in, the commonalities of everybody needs water, but also leaves a lot of room for discussion about different areas of the world. And there is back matter here that has a map of the world, and all of the different photographs in smaller forms, and talks in more detail about the location in which that photograph was taken. All right, so usually, when I do these book roundups, most of the books are fiction stories, and then I say, would I make sure every time to include a nonfiction title? Now, because of the theme, most of the titles are nonfiction, right? They're covering the water cycle, water in its different forms, liquid in its different forms. So now I'm going to be sure to include a story. And Like 100 Drums by Annette Greaseman, it starts out in that calm before the storm, where children are playing outside, but you feel the oppressive heat. And then it continues in the build up to the storm until everything breaks loose into a massive storm. And then everything calms back down, a single drop falls, children go back outside and play. I said I wasn't going to pair this with extensions. This is an exception. So almost every time we read this book, we bring out the instruments and we simulate a rainstorm. We start out with that calm before the storm, and we build up, we build up, we build up to a cacophony of sound. And then we take it all back down. So this is helping children, right, with their bodily control, understanding dynamics in their body, in sound, and having practice with it. So I do always include a wordless option, and we're going to be different again here in this video, in that instead of just one wordless option, I'm going to do two wordless options. And so the first one is Wave by Susie Lee. And Susie Lee has a number of wordless picture books that all follow a similar format. She generally draws in black and white with one additional color for emphasis. And so in Wave, the additional color is blue to represent water. And the sorry, my computer is chatting at me and distracting me. Um, the water is the story is a girl at the beach playing with the water, kind of tipping her toes as the water um, comes onto the shore and then recedes, and the girl gets braver and braver about how much of her body she's bringing to the wave. She gets so brave, she jumps into the wave, but the wave has a last laugh as it drenches her, but leaves behind some ocean treasures in the form of shells and starfish. My last title is probably one of my favorites. It's Float by Daniel Miyares. And it tells the story of a child who creates a newspaper boat, takes it outside to play in the rain with it, um, and is having tons of fun until the rain drenches the boat. And so the child comes back home dejected and sad because their boat is now a soggy sheet of paper. Uh, but the parent comforts them, dries them off, and then I love the twist at the end. Now the parent shows the child how they can use the newspaper to make a paper airplane and go out and play in the sun. So I do have this book list attached to the video in PDF form, so you don't have to take any notes. Um, so use this list, go back to the previous video for some extension ideas on water, and then join me here next week when I'm going to kind of shift into back to school mode and give you some tips for making school much easier with some outdoor and nature based ideas. I will see you there.